So hello everyone, just checking the lighting here. It's going to be getting dark as I speak, so hopefully by the end of the video you'll still be able to see me. So welcome along everyone. I am Jessica and this is a video that I have been wanting to put on off the back of my Embracing Emotions video series, which is a 5-part series discussing the energetic nature of emotion and how we interact with it. So this is really just about keeping the conversation going. And in this session, I'm going to be answering a series of questions on the topic of emotion from an energetic standpoint. So if you are joining me live, or just let me know in the comments below, and if you're watching this on the replay, type replay so that I know that you're there, and you're also very welcome to leave questions and I will endeavour to answer them. Also, if you do find this topic interesting and you want to dive a little bit deeper, in 2019 I will be hosting an emotional empowerment course. So for those of you that are wanting to really go into the depths of this rich content, I will leave a link in the video description where you can go and check out more information on that course. So the first question that came in was about loneliness. This is from Lendl, who was asking me to define loneliness. And I really love this question because it really invites the conversation around how do we define energy? How do we define an emotional experience? And the reality around this is that we can't really. You know, as humans, we like to label and put things into categories so that we can understand them. But what science is actually revealing is that one person's experience of an emotion is not necessarily another person's experience of that emotion. They're just concepts that are learned through culture. So in terms of how do we define loneliness, it's really a kind of sensation, a sort of sensational experience that we have come to relate or to know as this sense of being alone. And the likelihood would be that everybody who experiences loneliness or feelings of being alone is going to actually experience that in a slightly different way. So this is where I want to go into the second part of my answer to that question. Hi Jeanette, hi Shah, welcome along. Which is really taking this into where I feel the power of emotions is, which is in the area of self-inquiry. What does that experience of loneliness mean for you? What is it evoking within you, and what is it telling you? So that's where the real power lies. So as a general theme, loneliness has that sense of being alone, maybe being unsupported, feeling perhaps empty. And the message that is implied within those sort of feelings is that perhaps there is a desire of the soul, a desire of you as an individual to feel more solidarity within yourself, to feel more connection with others, to feel stronger in yourself as an individual. And that's really open to interpretation for the specific experience of loneliness that you're having as an individual. And ultimately, all of these things that we want to experience in our lives, we have to find within ourselves first. Welcome, Antonia. So if there is that sense of loneliness, then it's an invitation to come in and to find greater connection with the self, and to draw back to us the parts of us that feel abandoned or feel left out or don't feel a part of the whole. So that's my answer to that one. The next question is one that came out of a post I made the other day, which was around emotions and creativity. So what I was reflecting on was that I probably 8 plus 10, 12, 15 years ago had this experience of living life in a really stuck and stagnant way. And as I reflected now on where I feel quite creative, this is in line with where my emotions are flowing just as much as my creativity. And so the question is just around elaborating on that connection between emotions and creativity. And so where I want to go with that is that the blocked emotion that we hold within us, that we hold within our bodies and within our energy fields, correlates to a block in the psyche. So if we think about the psyche as in the mind, as in the awareness, as being an infinitely expansive space that just goes forever and contains within it all of this infinite potential, creativity is something that is new in the moment. It's a new arising thing. There is no limitation to it. So with the psyche, the pure version of the psyche is infinite and expansive. However, what happens is that through a course of time as humans, we've tended to develop grooves and blocks in that psyche that close it in from various directions. And these are essentially created by experiences that we have, which we then interpret in certain ways and form beliefs out of, beliefs that things are a certain way. So when we have these beliefs that start to lock in place, they limit us to what we believe to be true. So when we relate that back to creativity, it's like if we have these beliefs about how things are, that things have to be a certain way, or that we're not a creative person, or that creativity is limited to whatever, there's an infinite number of beliefs that we might have that are holding us locked in place, then we're not able to kind of see beyond those blockades that we've created for ourselves, and therefore not able to tap into that infinite potential and not able to allow that infinite potential to come in through the blocks of the belief systems and the psyche and to then filter out through us as creative human beings. And we know, like I remember when I was in uni and in earlier days of school, it's like to be a creative person, you have to think outside the box. Hey, Hannah. And so that box that we've created for ourselves is actually all of the belief systems that keep us held in. But we have to break out of that box in order to allow that creative potential to roll through us. So, Hannah, you've come just on time for me to answer your question, which is around what is your best tip for managing when you're feeling overwhelmed? So thank you for sending this in. I feel that overwhelm is actually one of those experiences that is really quite common for us in today's kind of Western culture, because we have just such a huge number of stimuli that's coming at us, signs, and the food that we take in and the messages that we take in from social media, and it's like all of this energetic information is coming in and kind of bombarding us. So I feel that this is probably quite relevant for a lot of people, because when we feel into the energy, the sense that we would call overwhelm, the experience that we would name overwhelm, it is this feeling of being like overloaded, feeling of being overstimulated. So my very first answer to that would be, in that case where you're feeling that, withdraw yourself from all of the stimuli. And oftentimes this can be stuff that's going on in the mind too. So it's not necessarily external stimuli, it could just be internal stimuli, but essentially needing to carve out a safe, clear space for the self to digest and sift through all of the energies that are turning around and are causing that sense of overwhelm. And that might be whatever your preferred method of stress relief is, whether that be meditation, whether that be yoga, it might just be breath practice, listening to some relaxing music. Some people enjoy going for a run and moving the body to start getting that energy kind of moving through rather than staying. So that's my first sort of immediate answer to how do we deal with that, and we'll each have a different take on how that's going to work for us. But the deeper question that I feel that this begs is around, why am I feeling this overwhelm? And what is this overwhelm telling me? Because ultimately these emotions and the emotions that we tend to experience as unpleasant are messengers, and the emotions that we tend to feel on a regular basis are ultimately just energy patterns, which have been developed usually over a period of time to assist with coping. However, there comes a point where those coping mechanisms that have been helpful for us in the past become unhelpful and unsupportive for the new place that we want to go into. So when I feel into that energy of overwhelm, there's a couple of things that come to mind. And again, I want to leave this open to personal inquiry, because we each have different interpretations and different experiences. But my general sense of overwhelm is that it's either when we're overloaded, so where we may have piled ourselves up with far too many priorities and unsure kind of where to turn and what to tend to first. So there's that kind of a lack of clarity going on, in which case there would be a question there to inquire into what are my real priorities, and attempting to get clear on that, or starting to sift through what can be shifted out of my life. The other sense that can happen, I feel, with overwhelm is when we're maybe we're ungrounded. So it's when our energy is scattered in all directions in different times and places, and it's like we don't know where to connect with. But when we can become grounded, thank you, Antonia, that was really lovely. When we can become grounded, then the only place that we are is here and now, right in the physical body as we are. So all we are focusing on and dealing with is this time and space. And that is often one of the greatest things that can help with overwhelm. But again, that is really open for interpretation, and it's going to be a matter of personal inquiry. So all of you guys that are listening, if you are getting any questions as I'm going along, please feel free to type them in the comments. I really appreciate you all leaving comments and coming on to engage in this call. I've got one more question that has been sent through, which I'll answer now. And again, keep asking your questions in the comments if you have them. You can also ask questions if you're watching this on the replay, and I will answer them either in another video if it warrants it, or with a post on my Facebook page. So this question is from Shannon, and this question is how to navigate close relationships with those who don't understand the big emotions in the awakening process. This is a big question. And I just want to first kind of jump into what is meant by the awakening process. And this is really when we start to ask the questions about why things are as they are, and start to clear away and strip away all of the dross that has kept us in that sort of box that we may have created for ourselves, and begin to purge out and get rid of all of those old energies so that the true self, the highest version of the self, can shine out. And it can be a really, really big process, and it looks different for everyone. So depending on our sort of life, the way our life is designed to play out, then this is going to look different for everyone. And some people will have quite a tempo on their awakening, and there can be a lot of emotional purging as part of that. So I believe that that's what Shannon's question is related to. And when we think about other people and how our awakening process and our emotional purging process is affecting them or affecting the relationship, my answer is that in this case, we really can only address or have any control or be in charge of our own experience of that. So I know from my own personal experience, when there are others who don't understand the process that we're going through, they can be triggered because our emotion, our moving energy interacts with the like energy in the other people and kind of creates this reaction that goes back and forth, and it can trigger these energies within other people around us, but they don't understand what it is. Oftentimes they've got no reference point for why is what we're doing and we're feeling affecting them. But as a person going through that process, and as a person having these feelings of emotions coming up, our only control is over us. And my best answer is to get comfortable with it yourself. Get comfortable with your emotional process yourself and fully accept it and own it yourself. This is really what I've had to do through my personal relationship with my husband, where I started to go through a very, very deep cleansing process, and he's not necessarily at this stage comfortable with emotion, and there was a lot of misunderstanding that went on between the two of us. And what I realized after a period of time is that I wasn't really comfortable with my emotional process. I didn't understand it, and that was where my discomfort was coming from. So when we can really own it and understand it in ourselves, that's where the compassion can come from, and that's where we can then start to understand that the other people in our lives are less informed maybe than us. They have less of a reference point for what's going on, and so we can start to have more compassion for where they're coming from and what their experience might be, and maybe be able to talk to them at a level that is compassionate and understanding where we're each coming from in this process. And also I feel that even within the awakening process, there are different ways that we might go through this. So some people will have quite a volatile emotional experience, others might not so much. So it's also about coming to appreciate and understand each of our own unique differences and unique processes and unique ways of navigating through life and perspectives on things. So that's about it. That is the answer to the questions that have come through. As I said, if you're listening on the replay and you have questions, just leave them in the comments. If you found some of this information useful and you feel like you want to dive into it, if you feel like it could be able to help you on your own journey, then as I said at the beginning of the session, go and check out on my website my emotional empowerment course, which I'll be releasing the dates for next year, 2019, and it's really going to be about giving tools and techniques for how to navigate the emotional reality so that it's transformational and liberating rather than disempowering, and also looking at how we can use these emotions as guiding points and messengers to really lift us through to our next potential. So I'm just going to have a little read with these comments here. So true about getting comfortable. Yeah, absolutely. And Hannah's got a question here. What are your thoughts on empathy and picking up emotions from other people as an empath? Oh yes, thank you for this question. So an empath is really someone who has empathy for other people's emotional experience, so they can sense the emotional energy that other people are feeling, and that then becomes sort of present in their own energy field. And this is something that we all have. This is a skill and a gift that we all have, but some people tend to be more sensitive and experience that to a higher degree. So this has actually been my experience, where I was extremely sensitive to the energies of people around me, and it wasn't until about 2 years ago that I realized that this was what happening. Up until then, I had been feeling all these emotions of people around me and not realizing that they weren't all mine. I had thought they were all mine. So the big question oftentimes is around, how do I know if it's mine, and how do I know if it's someone else's? And again, it's a personal journey, but if we are feeling really good and then all of a sudden we just feel low for no apparent reason and nothing has really happened to trigger that feeling, oftentimes that is when we're taking on energies from other people or even from our environment. And I would say most people have had this experience, right, where you actually you kind of walk into a room and you feel that energetic tension in the room, like you could just cut through the space with a knife. So that is we can all pick up on that, and it doesn't feel nice. It feels like you sort of want to withdraw and you want to protect yourself. So that's one of the ways that you can recognize it if it sort of comes out of the blue. And I tend to feel, when I picked up other people's energies, it kind of feels like an invasive energy. It feels a little bit like there's a buzzing and kind of a tingling maybe that doesn't feel good, like you kind of want to shrug it off. Now I had something else I wanted to go into with that. I feel like the most important message around this is getting to know your own energy. So really being able to come inside and sense, what is my energetic frequency? And the most important thing, once I know that, is learning to hold that and build that through the energy of love and through the energy of focus, and using the mind to create the energy vibration of the self and to radiate that out into the world. So if we're an empath and we're taking on energies from around us, we're actually absorbing that energy and making it part of us. So what we want to be able to do instead is to be a force field, right? Where we are instead radiating energy out, in which case any lower frequency energies that are coming in toward us would be repelled by the high frequency energy, so that there is this not attracting them in. When we are attracting energies into us, it is also only happening because that like energy is within us somewhere. there is some part of us that feels that same kind of feeling that the other person is feeling. And so the two energies are kind of magnetizing toward each other. So it is an invitation when we're taking these energies on to inquire into what part of us feels that, and then go through an emotional process or an energetic process to purge that energy, transform and transmute that energy, lower frequency energy, through the creation of a higher frequency energy, which will transform it. And I have a process that I downloaded from Spirit called Recipe for Emotional Alchemy, which is a 3-phase process that is about holding that lower vibrational energy within the light and love of the awareness to be able to shift it and clear it through. So I'll post a link to that recipe in the video description after this video's done. And one more thing I wanted to say on that, Hannah, thank you for the question, is that when we're unsure about what is going on, if we're unsure if an energy is or isn't ours, then we can just go inside, quiet and still the mind, come into the still place and ask, is it mine? Mine or something else's? And we can ask that question 3 times until we have a clear answer. And if it's not an energy of ours, it's not an energy that we are meant to process for ourselves, then we can just say return to sender, not mine, return to sender. Because if we, when we feel that we want to change the world with our energy, we have to be able to hold a high vibrational energy frequency and to emit that energy out into the world. And if we're constantly taking on these energies, we get overloaded and we get heavy, and it can be like we're piled under this rubble and we're constantly trying to climb out. So we're not able to be operating at our highest potential and bringing our greatest light forth into the world. And when I say light, it's light, but it's high vibrational frequency, energies that feel good and that inspire other people to feel good. So long sort of answer on that, but I do hope that it was helpful for you in some way. So again, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate all of your engagement, and please keep the questions coming, message me. I want to really get conversation going around emotion, because I feel that it is super pivotal to our transformation as a human race, being able to master these lower vibrational frequencies and be able to transform them so that we can all live at our greatest potential and in a state of harmony and alignment that feels wonderful for everybody. So wishing you all a really, really wonderful night, and goodbye.